let's get to that interview there too, because what you're saying, the level of how out of touch she is, I think begins with her even agreeing to do the interview. You ask her at one point, why did you come here? And
she asked us to come on, by the way, to be clear.
Yes.
Like, we didn't reach out to her office. She came to us.
Yeah. So she came to you guys. What's your theory on this? Because for me, my theory, I think Schumer knows he's toast. Because he's still with it, and he's not a dummy, even though he's a bad politician. I think he knows because he voted to send arms to Israel, and a majority of the caucus voted against their leader. Our friend Edinger Menton pointed out that doesn't usually portend well for the future of that person, like leading the party going down the road. So I think Schumer is trying to set up options for leadership in that have a young kind of brand, that are young relative to him, but have very similar politics, or maybe not Schumer, but Democratic leaders or the liberal Zionist lobby or or other interests, abundance people, Reid Hoffman. There's a lot of people that are trying to get it to just be about age. And Slotkin, I think, is doing a bit of a media tour to try to appeal to shows that have younger audiences like yourself. And she was so unaware, it seems like, of what either of you and Sagar feel about the genocide in Gaza, how you feel about it, what the tenor of the interview was going to be, that, like, you must be so completely outside of where the base is that you don't know anything about this show. She probably doesn't know anything about our show or any of the other bigger left-wing shows. And that's a pretty significant problem, right? Like, the right is so tuned in with the podcast space because they care about what their base thinks.
Yeah. I still have been thinking about that. Like, what did they think? And so first of all, they did have some awareness. Like, certainly her staff had awareness of our show and, like, our basic dynamic. I knew she knew something about Sagar's views on Epstein, for example. And I kept waiting for them to cancel leading up to the interview. I was like, there's no way they go through with this. But originally I was going to just do the interview solo, because it's sometimes better. A one-on-one dynamic can be better than you're not worried about, like, stepping on each other. And also it's kind of an intra-Democratic Party thing. So that just sort of made sense. Her staff was really adamantly opposed to that. They wanted Sagar there because they didn't want the appearance. This is what they told our producers. They didn't want the appearance of a softball interview. I was like, girl, you don't need to worry about that.
Be careful what you wish for
there. So, I mean, ultimately, I was glad that it did end up with Sagar there, because I think he did a great job, and, like, you know, we played well together in that context. But that was kind of interesting and revealing to me of, like, what she wanted and what she was going for. When I asked her, "What are you doing here? Why did you want to do this?" she brought up, like, "Oh, I like that you guys disagree with each other." So I think even though there was some awareness of the show, I think number one, she thought she sort of did have that, like, centristy Morning Joe, like, left-right dynamic in mind. People who are in the establishment have a hard time wrapping their head around our politics, like you and I's politics, Sagar's politics. I have a hard time wrapping my head around Sagar's politics sometimes, to be fair. But but in any case, I think she couldn't really conceptualize what we were doing, even though she had some familiarity. And then I also think that she is very confident in her ability to spin. So, you know,
she's not dumb. I mean,
she's not. She was
that came across. Yeah.
She's talented. No, she's talented. There's no doubt about it. She's intelligent. She's talented. I see why Schumer or whoever are, like, pushing her forward, because she believed that her coming on and saying the starvation needs to stop and I'm organizing this letter, that I think she thought I would accept that and think that, okay, she's moving and that's enough. And I don't think she realized that, number one, you can't have a centrist position on a genocide. Number two, I knew her voting record and that there was a lot to be held account for. Number three, I was going to ask her, okay, well, if it's crimes against humanity, that obligates you to do a lot, actually, as a person with a lot of power. And so I think she thought she would be able to spin it because she normally can, you know, in every other setting, she's been able to. And the point where I thought she was the most clearly Weasley and actually went from being Weasley to just outright lying was when I asked her about AIPAC support. I said, will you stop taking AIPAC money? And she got very high dudgeon. You need to get your facts straight. I am the only
got pissed at the
Jewish
end there.
woman who hasn't been endorsed. And I'm like, well, I don't even know about your endorsement. I didn't say she was endorsed. I said money. And so I said to her, but you have received their funds. And that's when she just outright lied and was like, well, I got some back in 2018, but since then, not so much. And of course, people immediately pull up the records. So like, okay, but you did actually. And this is just like now a flat out lie. But to me, the way she was able to take my words and say, oh, well, I wasn't endorsed, which may be technically true. She may not have been technically like on the endorsement page, just demonstrated to me what a skilled spin master she was, that she had her talking point ready to go of how to be like, I'm not the AIPAC shill that you people want to portray me as. But then when she got called out on that as well, then she just like resorted to outright lying about it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this was honestly, I'm not trying to butter you up because you're my friend, but like this was a watershed moment, I think, for online media, and you deserve a lot of credit for it, because let's look at this comment section on Colbert. So she went on Stephen Colbert's show, like 48 hours or something like that after your interview, 24 hours. She missed a vote to block arms sales to Israel to do this, and then put out some statement saying, I would have voted to block it, tee-hee, if I was there, as if that's going to work. Like, maybe show up. And you also bring up the other Michigan race, which is very fascinating because Haley Stevens in that race is just begging for AIPAC money. And then you have Abdul Al-Sayed on the other side. And I think McMorrow's got to drop out so there can be some consolidation. But we'll put that aside for now, because it'll be if Abdul Al-Sayed does well or wins the primary, I mean, Slotkin's got to worry about like things, and this clip of your interview coming back about Israel and all of that. But so Slotkin goes on Colbert. I listened to it. She gives a very similar answer that she gave to you about starvation, and Colbert lets her get away with it, and the audience applauds. Very different than how you engage with the interview. But this is what the comment section looks like. Slotkin staff told her to go to Breaking Points for publicity. Then her PR told her to go to Colbert for damage and control. Laughing my ass off. She signed a letter criticizing. Yeah, here we go. Thanks to Breaking Points, we now know that the senator was recording this interview at the same time she was supposed to vote on preventing further funding to Israel for offensive weapons. Breaking Points really dropped the ball by not asking Senator Slotkin about her opinions on hot dogs versus sandwiches.
That was my next cue before the staff was like, she's got to go. That was next on my list.
That would have been, she would have been too into the fryer on that. All right, man, it's a little corny. This is stupid. The fact that this is one day later than her train wreck interview on Breaking Points is such a jarringly clear example of why legacy media. I love what Matt likes to like these comments live. The fact that, blah, 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 clear example of why legacy media has record low trust. I'm just here to upvote any comment that mentions Breaking Points, etc. So, this is why I say this was like a really, I think, important moment. And she was not prepared because she's used to that kind of talking point working on every other major outlet. And it's an example of how, like, on the right, we see the Nelk boys glazing Netanyahu and now getting crap for it. But we do, or that independent podcast sphere that's so apolitical that it becomes right wing. But with political independent news, you guys are just showing that we now have an opportunity, if politicians want to or will engage, to be to show what independent journalism can look like, which is adversarial and not this like tap dance that they do on the mainstream news.
That's right. And in many independent, quote unquote, independent spaces as well, by the way.
Right.
And so, we're talking about cynical politics here. I hope the cynical takeaway from other creators who have previously, done the just like softball interviews is this got a lot of attention. If you're just in it for the clout and the clicks, people were talking about it. If you just want attention, hey, guess what? One way you can get attention, if that's your whole game, is to actually hold a politician to account. I mean, Tucker did the same thing with Ted Cruz, and that interview got a lot of attention. But I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right that, I mean, listen, I don't want to like overplay it because it's very self-serving, but I do think there's something to be said for the fact, as you point out, that you've got on the one hand, the Nelk boys, which is like the just most egregious, insane caricature of this, just like, let's have a dangerous person on and just have a conversation and not really know what the hell we're talking about kind of a mode. that happening, the mass backlash, I mean, just across the board backlash to that, them being like doing their mea culpas and like, oh my God, we really screwed this up. And then, you know, an example where, okay, this really is the way that you should be questioning people who have power, because they should be held accountable. I don't care where you are on the political. I mean, you know, I've done interviews with people who I like and consider ideological allies, and they deserve tough questions, all of them. It brought home to me. It really was brought home to me too. Yesterday we interviewed the GHF whistleblowers, a former Green Beret, did 9 combat tours. You know, Purple Heart decorated, all of that. And this man is shaking and crying while he tells me about what he witnessed being done to human beings by the IDF and by the way, American mercenaries, Americans on the ground. And, you know, it just was a reminder of why it was uncomfortable. No one likes, like some people do, but I don't like being confrontational. I don't like being an asshole. I didn't enjoy doing that interview. It wasn't fun for me. It wasn't fun preparing for it. It wasn't like all of that. But it matters. I mean, these are real human beings and their lives are destroyed. I mean, everything they've ever known has been decimated. Children who are starving to death. I mean, an entire population and culture and history that is being obliterated on our timelines every single day. And so if you aren't like willing to bear a little bit of discomfort, like how pathetic is that? It's the absolute bare minimum least that anyone could do. So that's, you know, that kind of was my reflections on what was a pretty wild week over at Breaking Points, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. I want to play a little bit because I feel like, you know, some in our audience maybe haven't heard it, but you should check out the full thing on Breaking Points. What do you think is better here? Your like longer exchange with her on when you start questioning her about it, or towards the end when you ask her explicitly about genocide? We could go either way.
Let's see. I don't know. What your pick?
All right,
let's do the genocide one, because then we can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So that's part 7B, Matt. So here is when you ask her specifically, after this has been fairly heated for quite a while, around like 3/4 of the way through the interview, you ask her specifically about whether or not she considers this a genocide.
So B'Tselem and another Israeli human rights organization joined the global consensus, Amnesty International, some 800 scholars. There was a piece from an Israeli scholar in the New York Times in saying this is a genocide. Do you accept, even Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday came out and said it's a genocide. Do you accept that? And if you do, I mean, what responsibility does a United States senator have? For this is a nation that, you know, we send every year billions of dollars to aid that you have, you know, voted for and supported. Like, what responsibility does a United States senator have to prevent genocide and to stop genocide that we see ongoing?
We have a responsibility up till today to ensure that food is getting in.
Is it
so
a
that
genocide?
People don't starve. I don't know that I'd use that term.
Why?
But it is violating the law of war.
Why don't you use the term though?
Because I think, you know, it's, to me, do I think it's ethnic cleansing, which is what I think of in genocide? I don't know if it meets that definition.
They're announcing
but didn't you say it earlier that it was ethnic cleansing? You said that they wanted to force it. I mean, this is open from the Israeli government. Like, they're saying it. Their Minister of National Security, they come out and they're like, we don't need shells. We need shells, not food. And we need to encourage migration.
Look,
they're saying
you're not going to get me to support what the Israeli government is saying right now. Right. I think the point I was trying to make is it's not just about, like, we have relationships with nations over time, regardless of who their leaders are. We have really tough moments. We have easier moments. But that doesn't, so I'm not willing to say
tough moment,
that, like, I hate everything ever.
Sure,
into
but so
the future.
even if you accept that they're committing a genocide, you still wouldn't cut off their aid?
I think that defensive aid and offensive aid are different things, and I think at this point,
so
what
if
they're
Nazi
doing
Germany,
every single day,
if Nazi Germany said we want defensive aid, I mean, it's just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. You know, in another context,
the weapons that they're using right now, I mean, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing,
Senator,
every single day is around aid, and they are hurting people
they have
around the
slaughtered over
delivery of
1,000
aid.
people who were starving people just trying to get aid.
That is not
this.
That's not high intensity bombs. That's not the weapons that that we were talking about 2 years ago. It's just not. I'm sorry. Every single day, the military reports that I read, they are traditional, like this is a military that has a bad strategy. It is not the bombs that we were seeing 2 years ago.
It's not a military that has a bad strategy. The strategy is forced starvation and ethnic cleansing. That's their strategy, and they're accomplishing it very effectively with the full backing of the United States government, including sadly Democrats.
Well,
and so,
I mean, well, she goes like, there's so much there, but Krystal, you take it from there for just a second. Your reflection on that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, because sometimes it can kind of feel, okay, why are you guys so obsessed with people calling it a genocide? And I think in a way, in that exchange, you see why it matters. Because if you are an elected official, especially a Democrat who claims to care about like humanitarianism and liberal values, and you accept that this is an ongoing genocide that we've been complicit in, that comes with historical weight. It comes with a moral responsibility. And they don't want that. They don't want that. They don't want to have to look back and say, you know what, turns out Biden and Harris, like they were complicit in genocide. You know what, turns out when I voted to ship those weapons that ended up being dropped on babies in refugee camps and hospitals and all the rest, like that was a horror. They don't want the weight of what that would require of them right now in this moment. And so that's why I think it's more than just a semantic word game. And Sagar and I actually have a different, you can watch, I debated Sagar on this yesterday, but that's why I think it's really important and why I'm so disappointed that, for example, Bernie Sanders won't commit to using this word, which again, it's the global consensus at this point. Like there's just really no denying it at this point. And then, you know, the other thing is her framing of we're having a tough moment with an ally. We're actually not. We're not having a tough moment. This is all backed by us. We're fully in alignment. I mean, Trump is out there actively saying, hey, he's the one who said, let's do the ethnic cleansing, like Gaza Lago, let's do it. And so, no, it's actually not a tough moment with an ally where we're in disagreement. We're in full agreement. We're fully backing it. We're fully complicit. That's some of the like spin and delusions that make me so angry. And then her comment that, oh, it's a military with a bad strategy. No, they're like, this is not an accident. You know, they're not just, oh, oops, we engineered a famine over years. This was deliberate, intentional, and effective at accomplishing their goal of complete and total destruction of these people, mass starvation to force a complete ethnic cleansing. Like it's all out in the open. And just to deny it at this point, it's not tenable. It is not tenable.
And when we talk about the Epstein story and this, I mean, I see them in similar veins, and it's not necessarily like the easiest line to draw, but I do think they're both credibility tests in different ways for people in power. If you're willing to talk about the government conspiracy in terms of protecting powerful people associated with Epstein, and if you're willing to call the Gaza genocide a genocide, then you have a certain immediate credibility with voters. You were saying this kind of earlier, and you said it to Slotkin, that wouldn't be the case. And she also, in the interview on that point, she vacillated between saying it was an issue that people online care about way too much, but also that it's an issue that is deeply personal to her constituents in Michigan, so much so that she has to have these like panels and works with Arab and Muslim leaders as well as Jewish leaders and blah, 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 blah. So which one is it? Is it an online left-wing issue, or is it an issue that's deeply personal to folks in your state? Because we know that only 8% of Democrats now approve of, via Gallup, of Israel's military action in Gaza. So the point is that it's actually quite widely held. And that I don't know where they get this idea from, that this is not something that motivates people, because there's no information that would suggest that, given Kamala's loss and the role that this played, and Zoran's win and the role that it played there.
Well, since they're soulless psychopaths, they can't imagine anyone actually having a conscience and voting based on this. And I think it's the sort of thing where, you know, people don't necessarily list it as their first issue, but it's a gatekeeping issue, because it is a signal of, do you mean anything? Like, do you have a single are you a human being? Do you have a single principle that you're willing to stand and fight for? And so, the Zoran's race is so important and so instructive for this reason, because we now know very clearly Zoran did not win in spite of his anti-Zionist position. He won in part because of it. And his opponents did him a massive favor by making it a central part of the race when he wasn't going to. Like, he's focused on his message of affordability, et cetera. And by making that a central part of the race, it did nothing but help him. I mean, there was a poll that came out, I think like 67% or something of New York City Dem voters were like, yes, do arrest Bibi Netanyahu if he comes to New York City. We agree with you, Zoran. I think it was roughly 80% who said, yes, it is a genocide. Like, the Democratic base agrees with us. And I don't expect Elissa Slotkin to become, a real human being who actually cares about these things. But I would like to see people realize there is a cynical, wide open political lane here, who I am completely convinced whoever comes in and is just unequivocal, like, it's a genocide, we're going to do everything we can to stop it, upholds Palestinian humanity, and is just like unafraid to completely go there without any fear or reservations, et cetera. Like, they are going to be a giant star because of because of the issue itself, but also because of what it says about that person and how they are willing to stand for humanity, stand on principle, even when you know that all of these forces are going to come out of the woodwork to try to destroy you and label you a racist anti-Semite.
Yeah, right. And I mean, the tough moment, the laws of war thing that also stuck out to me, the fact that she talks about the military reports that she's receiving, and like this is the kind of information that they're absorbing, as opposed to just go on social media. Like, I mean, this is just the disconnect is just incredibly jarring. But lastly on this front, I wonder what you think this means for the future of the party, because we're seeing that the numbers in terms of polling for Democrats are lagging behind what they were in 2017, approaching the 2018 midterms. Like, there is less of a desire to vote for Democrats just to oppose Donald Trump. That's straight up what's happening right now. And in no small part due to the support for genocide. So what's your sense of, like, I know you and Kyle have been on this, and you're right. Like, the base is increasingly radicalized and wanting more, but that may not translate in terms of the midterms. Although seemingly that's all Democrats seem to focus on is elections and like how this poll tests or whatever. But with this looming, I'm growing increasingly concerned that they can't motivate people with this leadership persisting.
I think they probably do fine in the midterms, just because I think Republicans are kind of demoralized. Like, I think there is enough of a backlash effect that they do pretty well in the midterms, not nearly as well as they could if they actually, were a real opposition party, certainly. But, the future of the party is going to be determined in 2028. And I think it's going to be feast or famine. I think they have a real whose side are you on moment facing them. You can either continue down the path of like being cozy with the donors and doing everything to protect their feelings and make sure that their checkbooks are still open for you, or you can actually, offer a true alternative to the fascist Trump takeover that we've seen. And part of that is certainly like standing up against genocide. I have a feeling that the Democratic base is very ready for a more radical, bold vision. And it's just a question of if someone is actually going to step up and really offer that. And then how much, I honestly don't even think that the Democratic Party apparatus is strong enough to screw that candidate in the way they did to Bernie in, 2016 and 2020, because they have lost so much trust. The media apparatus has lost so much trust, et cetera. Like, they're just a hollowed out husk, a house of cards waiting to be tipped over. But, that requires some leader to step into the void and actually offer that bold vision.
You know who it could be?
We need you to be Mamala of the country.
I'm 100% joking. I hope she gets the message and doesn't try that humiliating run.
I think she might. No, Emma. I feel like she's so delusional. I feel like she's got people around her who will make money off of her running again and are looking at the polls and are like, oh, you're up. They love you. See, they miss you. Come back.
She girlfriend, just go into private practice and cash in. That's all you need to do. I mean, we need, and I'm letting you go after this, but like this came up on the show yesterday, like the idea, it was someone saying some politician was extremely nice. Oh, it was Cory Booker. We had an IMer, and I've heard that. And I've heard that about Hillary Clinton, and you've heard that about like interpersonally. And I don't doubt that Kamala interpersonally, for example, or like Joe Biden, he's so well liked by his colleagues. Like the quality of, you can make somebody feel like they're the only person in the room. And you know what that quality is really good for? Raising money from really rich people that want to be flattered and feel like they're the only person in the room with Hillary Clinton. But I don't know if Bernie makes people feel like they're the only person in the room. I don't know if Zoran makes people feel like they're the only person in the room, because it's not about the only person in the room who can cut you a check. It's about mass mobilization politics and bottom-up politics, not top-down politics. And I think there's that line of demarcation where she just is incapable. And I'm not sure who the Democrat will be, but most Democrats are incapable of, actualizing that kind of politics. So
yeah, well, I'm gonna get roasted for telling a woman to get back in the kitchen, but Kamala never seems happier than when she's cooking. I'm being so serious. She is like,
she loves a good cocktail.
She's like, enjoy. She's in there. She's very skilled with it. Like, go start a cooking YouTube channel. Go do that. Like, you'll be so much happier.
Yes, exactly right. And her food looks good. Like I would try it.
Like, absolutely. She looks like, I feel like
she's hot. She's rich.
A charisma that comes out when she's doing that too. Yes, like exactly. You don't have to do this. You don't
live
have to do
like
this.
a Kardashian.
It's not going to go well.
Yes.
Like, let's just consider other alternatives.
Call it 107 minutes, and all the dishes have to be done in 107 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, the idea that her campaign was 107 days, the numerology people with October 7th have got to be freaked out right now. It's too many coincidences. Anyway, well, appreciate your time today, Krystal. I really love our conversations always. And everybody should check out that full interview over at Breaking Points. And of course, Krystal, Kyle, and friends as well. Thanks for coming on today.
It's my pleasure. Great to see you, Emma.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.